In a world where governments control the internet, one billionaire is giving people access they were never supposed to have.
And more news coming in. Elon Musk has now also made an entry into Iran-Israel war. Elon Musk said will provide Starlink facility to people of Iran.
Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet service is now active in Iran. Elon Musk made that happen after the Iranian regime imposed nationwide internet restrictions. Adam.
So how did we get here? Iran has long enforced one of the world's most draconian internet censorship systems, blocking about 70% of the web, including YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. Additionally, many VPNs are controlled by their Internet Filtering Committee, headed by the Prosecutor General. During the 2019 protests, the regime imposed a total internet blackout, slashing national traffic to about 5%, while Amnesty International documented over 300 deaths obscured by the blackout. Fast forward to late 2022 protests following Mahsa Amini's death, and things got worse. Iran repeatedly shut down WhatsApp and Instagram, filtered VPNs, and enforced weekly shutdowns in protest-heavy regions like Zahedan. But the regime didn't stop there. Facing domestic unrest in mid-June 2025, Iran again crashed its internet, cutting up to 97% of traffic after Israeli strikes hit its nuclear facilities. Amid that blackout, Elon Musk tweeted, "The beams are on," and activated Starlink satellite internet over Iran on June 13th and 14, restoring crucial connectivity for millions. But how does Starlink remain active despite the internet shutdown? Starlink provides a satellite-based internet that bypasses local infrastructure entirely, making it almost impossible for authoritarian regimes to block or monitor. Its decentralized design and global constellation allow connectivity even when ground networks are disabled, offering citizens access to global news and communication platforms beyond Tehran's filters. Yet it gets darker. Since Starlink has been banned in Iran, smuggling Starlink terminals into Iran has become a secret lifeline for democracy-aligned citizens, journalists, and activists. These flat, tray-like devices are secretly smuggled through porous borders from neighboring states, often at great personal risk since smugglers may face arrest, imprisonment, or even execution if caught. Despite these official bans, estimates suggest 20,000 to 30,000 such terminals operate underground in Iran as of mid-2025, serving roughly 100,000 users.
Now, the ban on Starlink comes days after the U.S. bombed Iranian nuclear sites. Despite the ban, however, reports suggest that between 20,000 to 40,000 Starlink terminals are still in operation across Iran, and most of them smuggled in through black market networks.
Yet there's more to it. Musk's move in 2022 during the Mahsa Amini protests marked the first major activation of Starlink in Iran, prompting rapid smuggling and growing demand for uncensored communication. However, the regime's new ban on Starlink equipment, passed in late June 2025, includes penalties ranging from flogging to fines or up to 2 years in prison for users. On top of that, Iran filed complaints with the International Telecommunication Union, while IRGC patrols specifically target Starlink dishes at checkpoints. This escalating crackdown shows why dictators fear Starlink so deeply. Its presence undermines state control over information, enabling citizen journalism, coordination of protests, and disruption of disinformation campaigns. Also, Iran's pattern of internet shutdowns during the 2019 unrest, again in 2022, and the June 2025 war-driven blackout shows that digital silence is central to the regime's repression strategy. So Starlink's activation, even amid global sanctions and black market problems, offers a counterbalance. It lets Iranians bypass digital curfews, reconnect with the world, and expose state violence in real time. That power is what makes Starlink both indispensable to protesters and terrifying to regimes. And as expected, the regime has fought back. The conflict. The Iranian government has escalated its pushback against Starlink, branding the satellite service a national security threat. Lawmakers moved swiftly on June 30th, 2025, to officially ban and criminalize the ownership or installation of any terminal.
Iran's parliament has passed a law banning the use of Starlink, the satellite internet service owned by tech billionaire and Tesla founder Elon Musk. The legislation criminalizes the use of Starlink with harsh penalties, including hefty fines, public flogging, and even up to 2 years behind bars. Reports suggest the move is aimed to combat access to uncontrolled internet that allows users to bypass government censorship, access blocked websites, and communicate without surveillance.
The Iranian government has also demanded that the International Telecommunication Union compel SpaceX to deactivate devices operating within Iran's borders. But the ban is not only directed at Elon's company. Officials have issued stern warnings that those caught using Starlink could face fines, imprisonment, and even flogging, highlighting the regime's desperation to control information amid growing unrest. Meanwhile, Iran's Ministry of Communications signaled its intent to deploy cyber measures and tighter regulations, targeting any technology bypassing its censorship controls. Despite the efforts of the regime, it cannot fully control Starlink. See, Starlink relies on low Earth orbit satellites that beam internet around censorship and terrestrial shutdowns. This decentralized satellite mesh cannot be shut off by local governments and thus remains unblockable via traditional firewalls or VPN blocking tech. For authoritarian regimes relying on ground-based control of communications, the constellation of thousands of beams piercing through their firewall is existentially threatening. Yet Starlink's influence continues beyond Iran. In Ukraine, a similar dynamic played out when Starlink became essential for civilian life and military coordination at the beginning of their war with Russia in 2022. Ukraine deployed over 50,000 flat-panel terminals from SpaceX and allied donors to sustain connectivity across frontline zones and nationwide infrastructure outages. With Starlink, the Ukrainian military was able to fly combat drones, coordinate artillery, manage battlefield communications, and maintain real-time command and control systems like Aerorozvidka's Delta platform. And thanks to rapid software updates, Russian cyber attacks aimed at disrupting Starlink failed, further proving that satellite-based internet defies conventional state control strategies. What Iran hates about Starlink is that it helped restore connectivity during protest-driven blackouts when the regime cut internet access after escalating tensions following the June Israeli strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. With Iran trying to limit Starlink's power, critics argue that Musk's decision to enable access over Iran was a bold intervention, a lifeline for protesters and civil society, but a red line for Tehran. Activists began smuggling thousands of terminals into Iran from neighboring countries, fueling a covert network of resistance against censorship. And unlike traditional VPNs that can be blocked or monitored, Starlink's constellation uses mesh routing beyond any central national filter. The network's technical design means intercepting or jamming all satellite beams within a country is practically impossible for regimes like Iran's. Just as Ukraine has shown how Starlink can sustain a population under siege, Iran's activists and citizens now see it as a way to bypass shutdowns, organize protests, share information, and document abuses, something that directly undermines the regime's digital monopoly. While Iran moves to criminalize Starlink use and threaten harsh punishment, the continued underground connectivity shows how resilient such systems can be in the face of authoritarian control. And with the world watching Iran lose the fight against Starlink, this has sent a revolutionary message all over the world. Global implications. Authoritarian governments and regimes have been enforcing near-total blackouts by severing physical internet infrastructure. But Starlink now bypasses those controls. This is because satellite coverage is not tied to landlines or undersea cables, making it virtually unblockable, even when regimes try to cut or black out the domestic network. And with Iran's move to declare cyber threats and regulate terminals, this has reflected its panic at losing control over information flow. So in practice, regimes can no longer fully mute their citizens during protests or wartime when Starlink users can reconnect with the world beyond firewall lines. But here is where things get even more interesting. Starlink's activation isn't just tech, it's diplomatic leverage, enabling outside actors to influence internal affairs without state consent. In Iran, the beam activation message on June 14th triggered a surge of black market terminals entering via neighboring states despite legal bans. Additionally, its success in Ukraine showed how the growing number of Starlink devices empowered resistance and command structures beyond conventional networks. That influence makes Starlink part of strategic competition, with countries viewing it as a tool that can shift power rapidly. But with Musk's political alignment with the Trump administration, Starlink has become a polarizing symbol, not just an internet service provider. Countries that oppose U.S. policy see Starlink as tied to Western influence and may resist licensing or cooperation based on Musk's stances. On top of that, regulators in Europe, Africa, and Asia increasingly evaluate Starlink not only on technical merits, but also through the lens of Musk's public persona and past political statements. This makes things more complicated since Starlink's work now depends not just on internet access, but also on how governments make political choices. Some worry about seeming connected to a flashy tech billionaire who's caught up in worldwide scandals. But for those seeking total information control, Starlink's capability to bypass censorship, empower protest communication, and support resistance movements is directly challenging their rule. At the same time, its integration into geopolitical strategy and Musk's own associations with U.S. politics raise urgent questions about accountability, sovereignty, and the rise of private actors as state-level players. This marks a turning point since satellite internet is no longer just infrastructure. It is strategic power in the hands of a single entrepreneur with global reach. And that becomes a threat to any dictator on the planet since Starlink has thousands of low-orbit satellites orbiting above every nation, bypassing physical borders and government censorship mechanisms. To make matters worse, Musk has demonstrated full authority to turn on or off service in critical conflict zones, most notably ordering Starlink shutdowns during Ukraine's Kherson offensive in 2022, revealing his unprecedented leverage over vital communications. With over 6 million subscribers globally and dominance in satellite internet, Starlink poses a challenge to state control of information infrastructure, something most authoritarian leaders are against. This is because Starlink strips them of control over communication, allowing protesters, dissidents, and journalists to bypass censorship and surveillance. Also, with one decision, Musk can ignite or silence unrest, making him more powerful than the national regulators. And this loss of digital control threatens their grip on power. But with all these efforts to regulate Starlink going on, the bigger question remains: is Elon Musk building the world's first private borderless internet empire? And if so, who really controls freedom of information in the future? Governments or billionaires?